Hi, welcome back. And as you can see, we have created the center navigation inside the header wrapper, and this is the HTML document. We haven't set any CSS rule to this HTML document. So, in order to set a CSS rule, we need to use CSS Selector. So, there are certain CSS selector which you use to select elements or attribute, or we can use a attribute value in order to select that particular element. Likewise, here we add a class, and this class is a selector for the CSS, and we add wrapper to this div element. That's mean this div element has a class or wrapper, and by the selector for the class we can style this element. So for the selector for the class, it's a dot, and after the dot, whatever we put here, it will search for that class. Likewise, if we say ASD, it will search for ASD inside the document, because we have add this link style.css. So we have linked this document to this style sheet, so the browser will act upon whatever we do here. So likewise, we have said that search for ASD inside the document file. We don't have a class of ASD, and we don't add it inside the document file, so that is why it is not valid. It will not work. So in order to work this class, we need to add it here. So likewise, if we use ASD here, then it will work, because we have added here, and whenever we put here, it will work for this wrapper. So we already have a class for this div element, which is wrapper. Instead of giving a new class, we will simply copy this class and we will give it here. So that is how we select this div element using a class selector. So that class selector usually call a simple selector, and there are another simple selector which is called ID Selector. Let me explain the ID Selector in a simple way. It will work as the same as a class, and it is right has ID equal to whatever you put here. For sake of the argument, let's say this ID. So we have created the ID for this wrapper, this ID. In order to work with this ID selector inside the CSS, we need to use a hash symbol to select that ID which we have created, which is this ID. And by this we mean we are selecting this, because we have added the ID attribute and we have given the ID to this element. We don't need to use this ID selector. In later video we will learn, we will make a relation between label and input with this ID selector. But first we have to focus on that we have learned that this class selector is a simple selector. We also have ID selector, which is also called a simple selector. As for selecting the element, we use type selector, which is usually called a tag selector, or even you can call it an element selector, and it will select an element by its name. Likewise, here is given a div element. If you want to select this div element, we can call it here div, and this will select all the div inside the document. We can give this div a style. So giving this div a style, you will notice every div will affect with this. So let's say div, and div has a width width of 200 pixels and height of 200 pixels and background of green. Let's save the file and let's see what happened inside our file. You can see all the div which is available inside the document has a rule which is given here. So that rule applied every element inside the document. What every element? The div element, because we have added div here. By this type selector, we have selected all the div inside the document. So we can use this type selector to select some specific divs inside a specific class. So what I mean by that, let's say we have a class of left div class. We have certain divs. So let's say we have select only the div class, and inside the div class we want to select all the div. So let's say div. So let's put the dot. So now you can see it will search for the left div class, and then it will search for div, and then it will apply this style to all the div which is inside the left. So let's save this file and let's refresh the page. You can see something change here, and let's remove the style from the bottom. Let's open up the developer tool by right click to inspect element, and you will see this developer tool, and with the help of this developer tool we can inspect element and we can see what style is given to that element. So let's say we have given the style to the left div, but we haven't give to the class that style. We have given the style to the type selector which is div, and we have said that whatever div is inside the left div class, we will add this style to divs which is the children of the left div class, which is here. You can see here inside the left div class, you can see we have many divs, and it will select whatever div inside the left div class. So here you can see we have selected the left div class, but we have given the div the style. So we'll select the div element. You can see here we have given the style and it is applied to that element, but you haven't noticed that this type selector will select all the div. So whatever div we select which is wrapped inside the div, and inside the div, not the span, only the div, it will select all the div which is inside the left div class. And you can see it is not selected the span element or the italic element. You can see here it haven't selected it, because we have said the type selector will only select the name which you are giving to that. So what do I mean by that? Like I have said, it is a type selector and it is usually called a name selector, and often people as well call a tag selector. If you want to select an element, simply call the name of that element and it will work as we have given here. We can also select a span over here. Let's say span, save the file and refresh the page. It will only give the style to the span element like it does it here. If you select this span element, because these two elements are the span element. That is how we select a tag from a type selector. Let me pause here, and in the later videos you will learn more about the ID selector step by step, but I think this is enough for now. And what we have learned about type selector and a class selector and ID selector. In the later videos we will learn more about selectors. That's enough for now. See you in the next lecture.